The guidelines provide examples and cite cases to explain how the agencies analyze business practices that may violate antitrust laws. The guidelines also explain that certain types of agreements between employers, such as wage fixing or no-poach agreements, may expose companies and executives to criminal liability under the antitrust laws. So what did Meki do? She told companies around the country that if you enter into no-poach agreement, wage fixing, those types of non-competes, that not only could you be civilly liable, you could also even be criminally liable.
Okay.
Is that woke or is that based?
I would say based. I would personally say based. Telling a company what to do and not to exploit people is supposed to be based, but apparently it's woke here. All right.
Yeah. So, I forgot. We're dedicating this segment to none other than Hillary Clinton for her the most woke comment ever made on behalf of corporate America,
yes,
which defines basically an entire era. So roll E4 here to remind people.
If we broke up the big banks tomorrow, and I will, if they deserve it, if they pose any systemic risk, I will, would that end racism? No. Would that end sexism? No. Would that end discrimination against the LGBT community?
That's the
one of Crystal's favorites.
Yeah, that's the essence of corporate America using woke language to defend itself, saying, don't break up the big banks. Why? Because that won't end racism.
Solve gay rights.
It won't solve gay rights. It won't do all these other things.
Okay.
Okay. So we got one for based here. Okay. Next, Breitbart says, quote, she issued a last-minute lawsuit against 6 major landlords in line with the Biden administration's blaming AI and landlords rather than his own inflationary policies for high rent. Right. So you can put up, I believe this is E6.
Okay.
Which I don't even think I need to explain to you or to the audience. This one. So this was.
Yeah, we covered this one.
Yeah, we covered this. This is a Meki policy that she rolled out, attacking landlords over juicing rent. Is it woke or based?
I gotta go with based. I gotta go with based personally. But I mean, let's make this clear. I don't speak for quote MAGA, populist right, or any of these people. And even woke and or based, it basically gets defined in terms of liberalism and who the person is. So for example, if you fire, like you're talking about, this is what basically I think the point you're trying to make. If you have a lady who's a lib and you own that lib, that's based, right? In terms of the culture war. The problem is that when you actually look at some of these policies and things like that, some of these these definitions fall apart, and that is part of the problem with a lot of the attack vector. This kind of gets to the whole idea of Doge versus MAGA and what it even means. But part of the thing I always try to point out is like, guys, MAGA is whatever Trump wants it to be. Right. And that's where there are a lot of people who are like, this doesn't fit with what Trump ran on. I'm like, well, you know, the thing is, Trump at the end of the day, yeah, he said a lot of stuff. But what did he really say? I alone can fix it. And I increasingly think that's really what Trump was all about. And to the extent that he's good or he's bad or he's MAGA or whatever, it's whatever it aligns in terms of his transactional reality and whatever happens to be him feeling that day. But if he had faith in some sort of broader agenda, I mean, honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you didn't hear it here.
Luckily,
I can tell you that.
Luckily, I didn't have any faith.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 2 more. So this next one is she sued KKR over paperwork violations.
Okay.
That's how Breitbart describes it. So basically, KKR, massive private equity firm that does mergers and acquisitions. Yeah. There are federal laws that require that if you're doing a major merger, that you submit a filing, with the Department of Justice. Here's what we're doing so that you can review this. KKR came up with a clever workaround. They're like, what if we don't do that, and we just do the merger? Then it can't be reviewed. In this document, they quote from several executives who were saying, less is more. Let's make sure we are not submitting these books. So, is this wokeness run amok or based?
That one is I wouldn't call that necessarily based, but this is more of a personal thing. Is that I hate private equity firms like KKR, so I'm personally supportive of it.
So go rip them. Now this is the last one is where it gets interesting, and I think we can actually start talking about some philosophy here. So they also whack her for Meki. So quote, this is Breitbart. Meki repeatedly invoked W.E.B. Du Bois, a black Marxist thinker, to further her argument that antitrust laws must be used against what she considers racism. This one was, to me, the most egregious because it is actually backwards. It is a reverse, incorrect reading of the speech that they reference. So you can put up E8, and for the fun of it, let me do this whole 3-paragraph section of it. So this is from the speech that they said is woke. So the economic opportunities and liberties protected by the Sherman Act, this is what she said in her speech, in particular, protections against monopolies were important to the founders too. Jefferson listed a restriction against monopolies among the rights that deserve to be enumerated in the Bill of Rights. After all, England's grant of monopolies for different products, including tea, may well have set the American Revolution in motion. The foundations on which the Sherman Act rests are not limited solely to concern about contractual restraints, property rights, and industrial relations. They also contemplate individual liberty and concern about distribution of power. Why is this concern for economic opportunity and liberty so important? I come back to my thesis because efforts to secure social and political rights are at risk if they are not backstopped by economic opportunity, and because antitrust plays an important role in our economic liberty and democracy of opportunity tradition. In his 1935 book, Black Reconstruction in America, Du Bois famously argued that a key reason why the Confederacy collapsed and the institution of slavery with it was because when Union soldiers arrived in the South, Black Americans, as Du Bois put it, left the plantations and led a general strike. They exercised the most basic economic right that comes with freedom, the freedom to make decisions about one's labor. The exercise of this economic liberty devastated the Southern economy and, as he put it, furnished 200,000 federal soldiers. This is no doubt resonant for all of us in the room who have helped advance labor competition jurisprudence and protected the ability of organized workers to act collectively. So you respond to that while I find her
whether that's
quote.
woke or it's based.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like I said, it could be based, could be woke. I guess I don't really know. Unfortunately, I have not.
Here's the quote where she finishes. She says, on this telling, we should think harder about calls to subordinate our antitrust and anti-monopoly laws purportedly in service of some other social and political values. So she's saying, do not subordinate antitrust to a push for civil rights or to for a woke agenda. She's specifically, explicitly saying, do not do that. She's saying that economic rights are fundamental. If you don't have economic liberty, if you don't have economic resources in your community, you don't have the ability to fight for political and civil rights. It is the reverse of wokeism to say, no, it is essential. American liberty is essential. To have that speech be evidence of her wokeness was like, what's going on here?
Ryan, you probably taught 10 times harder about this article than the person who wrote it.
That's probably
in terms of
because he took stuff that was handed to him as my guess and just slapped it together.
If anything, look, this is a very good view into exactly how. Look, everything is about framing, right? So what did they say? It was like some black Marxist. Is the way that they phrased it. I unfortunately don't know enough about. I need to go find a good book about.
You would like Du Bois. He's
no. I've read about him, but I have never read a book specifically about him. And it gets to the heart of where all the tension is with MAGA and with Bannonism, with the coherent ideology around this. But I think really what it comes down to is the current vector is all about control within the right. And to the extent that anything is considered like horseshoe or whatever, the right is the one that has to be in control. And I'm speaking in terms of the way that they see this movement. So for them, anybody who is willing to work with the Biden apparatchiks or any of these people, these are bad, right? These are enemies. And if we're going to have anybody who even agrees with that, it has to be somebody who already aligns with us on the cultural issues. So I do think it's unfortunate because, you have people like Chopra and others who really did try to, transcend, I guess, partisan boundaries. But what can we say? The number one lesson here is that good faith does not get rewarded in Washington.
No, it doesn't.
That's really the way my number one lesson from any of those people, and I hate to say it because it almost makes me sound like blue MAGA, is, you're an idiot for ever trying to work with those people. They're like, at the end of the day, it's about us. We're a team, and we fight within the team. I don't think it should work that way, but that's where the political incentives are right now.
And also notice, as the last point, notice the interesting trap it sets up, because anybody who's watching this by the end is like,